I didn't want him to go. By the way, this video is not made for kids. Why am I in a bloody dressing gown in every bloody review? Just play the rest of the sketch and then let's get on with this. Have to get back to Poppy. I am Omega. And I am Omega 2. And I am Omega 3. What the fuck is that thing? He's supposed to be us, but, he looks like a giant baby skeleton creature. Well, at least we know where your body went. Oh, shut up. Okay. Brother Time Lord, what has happened to you? Yeah, I mean, there's nothing about your antimatter backstory or whatnot. I mean, the only thing we got is that you were the first Time Lord and you developed time travel, but they skip over being trapped in an antimatter universe. You're now just in this underverse thing or whatnot. And nothing about losing your body and only being kept by your will, or trying to find another body to copy or replicate. Not to mention your persistence to get revenge on the Time Lords. And now you just want to eat them. I mean, seriously? Yeah, Russell, what's that all about? I have become a god in the Underverse. And now I'm hungry for fellow Time Lords. You know what? I don't need this. I am Omega. I deserve better. At least they had those nice bits of Stephen Thorne from Gallifrey 6 audios in the Wish World scene where the Rani reveals she's trying to find you. Even still, screw it, I'm off to watch Canine Timequake. But it was never made. Well, then I'm going to pretend that it was made and watch that version. Yeah, screw it, I'm going to join you. No, wait, guys! Wait, watch my Totally Awesome episodes! Do you mind if I join you? Oh, screw this. Cue the review already. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome, one and all, to my final review for Doctor Who Season 2, Bad Wolf / Series 15 / Season 41, that being for Episodes 7 and 8, Wish World and the Reality War. The plot of this story is that the Rani, aka Mrs. Flood, who has now bi-generated, both Ranis are now seeking to find Omega in the Underverse, which is now what his antimatter world has become, but minus the antimatter. They're trying to seek him so they can build a new Gallifrey and restore the Time Lords in their image. In order to find Omega, they have rescued Conrad Clark from Lucky Day from prison and given him this Wish World using the god something. I'll put the name. It begins with a D. So using them as the god of wishes, they've created a Wish World hosted by Conrad, and using its slips and mistakes as the fuel to find Omega, and they keep it set on May the 23rd so that all the build up to May the 24th happens, in order so that they can find Omega to rescue them. And they've managed to do this by getting the Doctor to go and create a Vindicator so that they can get back to May the 24th after they left Earth with Belinda in the Robot Revolution. And so the Rani has followed the Doctor in order to ensure that after visiting all of those locations, that they can use the Vindicator to circumnavigate the world and create the Wish World and boost the power and the energy that they need. And then they'll just go in circles until they are able to find and rescue Omega. Although not everybody is fully endorsed into this Wish World, as they may suspect, as Ruby Sunday is free of this mind control for the most part, and she's been able to try and fight back against this conditioning, as has Shirley Ann Bingham, as Conrad's world is very specific to his mindset and ideology. It is also crucial for the Doctor to also be in here so that he can assist with the final stages of getting to Omega through all of his doubts and uncertainties. So after the events of the Interstellar Song Contest, he and Belinda find themselves now married with a daughter called Poppy, who looks suspiciously like Captain Poppy from Space Babies, and now living a normal life as the Smiths. But the Doctor soon is encouraged by a special message from Old Flame Rogue, from the episode Rogue, to break free of this conditioning so that he can then confront the Rani. After the Rani tells her his plans, he is put into a death-defying situation until he's rescued by his other old friend, Anita, from Joy to the World. And so, using the Time Hotel from the future, he is able to snap everybody else out of the Wish World in order to try and prevent the Rani from succeeding with her plans, or more specifically, to stop Omega from coming and eating everything up, and to save the Earth, as well as also Poppy, who may be more real than everybody suspects. And that's more or less the plot of Wish World and the Reality War. What a massive lot of stuff happening. Okay, so Wish World is very interesting with this, the whole setup with the worlds made out of wishes, with Conrad's, how he views the world, both sort of positive lights, as in he wants people to be happy and fed and safely home with good families, etc. But because of his ideology, he can't imagine certain people living that way. So the homeless people, the disabled people are homeless. Transgender people aren't even, I don't even think about them. So Rose Noble is wiped out of existence until the Doctor brings her back. And women, although in my reaction I said that they weren't discriminated against, they are put into stereotypical roles, but somehow race is okay. Also, homosexuality is not okay in Conrad's world, so it's a bit pick and choose for him with what he's got. But the crutch of the first part is that I think the god's name is Deciderum, or Deciderum. I'm just going to call him Deki. So the Rani has gone back in time and got Deki and brought them to the future to be the god of wishes, to give Conrad his wish world, boosted by the Vindicator power. And for the most part of this first episode, we're exploring that, but also the Doctor, or rather John Smith, and the other characters such as Ruby breaking through this perception to try and break through and try and find out what's actually going on. So it's an interesting storyline to follow and has some interesting moments going through quite a bit of the episode. Also, the Rani has these other things that are just round the corner, that's sticking their long fingery things into this blackboard, sort of gooey, but hard gooey thing to record all of this stuff. Wish World is mostly more set up to Reality War as opposed to, it does sort of answer questions regarding the Vindicator and sort of ties up loose ends from Lucky Day, as that episode sort of serves as the prologue to this story. But this one is mostly still building up to part 2. Obviously, there's still lots to go with the Rani's plans. As mentioned, she wants to restore Gallifrey following the Master's destruction of it, and later also the particle explosion in the Timeless Children, which has now apparently not only wiped out all other Time Lords in the universe, apart from the Doctor, the Master, and now the Rani, and also Omega down below. The Rani saw it coming, so she escaped. But somehow it's... And also maybe Susan, but we'll touch upon that later. But I'm not sure how the Doctor escaped and how the Master managed to survive, but everybody else is gone. And also apparently Time Lords are now infertile, according to Reality War, so... yeah. Whether that's now that they've made that retroactive... like Time Lords can never have children, or if that's just going forward or not. So I'm not quite sure. I don't know if... I mean, from watching this again, it sounded like it's now... Time Lords cannot be... are now infertile going forward, so if anyone's still out there, then the species just doesn't carry on. But if they've made it retroactive as well, then I guess looms have been brought back into canon. Anyway, I don't actually have a huge amount to say about Wish World now. Mostly after watching the Reality War. But yeah, most of it is basically set up for the story. It is well made, although some of the staging could be a little stronger. But the execution of the story does look really good. And it was really great to see Rogue back as well for his cameo. Now, it may have been filmed at the time of the episode Rogue being filmed, but it was still great being here nevertheless. We also have the return of Poppy, or rather a new version of Poppy, played by the same actress who played Space Baby Poppy, although not the same voice actress who was in that. That was, they had voice actors in that for the babies, but the baby who was the physical Poppy in that is back as new Poppy. And yeah, she's fun. I wouldn't say that, because the episode, the main emotional stuff of the episode is centered around her. I won't say that we've got a huge amount of care towards her from the audience perspective. It's more of a need of, oh, neat. The Doctor and Belinda have a child who looks like Poppy from Space Babies, and maybe she's got something to do with it. But it's not so much like someone we've come a season or two's worth of character arc to come to know and love and get a bit emotional later on. More on this later. So yeah, Wish World is a very good start to this story. But again, like I said, it's mostly set up, and whilst it does pay off some things from earlier in the series, it does also is mainly here to start with, explore the Wish World, and later lead into part 2, the Reality War. Now, this is where things get a bit more interesting. And also, everything goes a bit mad with this episode. I mean, Wish World was a bit mad, but it was sort of, okay, this sort of, because it's a new parallel sort of world sort of situation. It's supposed to be mad. Reality War, it's pretty proper bonkers, so to speak. As firstly, the Doctor's rescued by Anita from Joy to the World. Great to see her back. She's a fan favourite. By the way, Anita, in her spare time, likes to watch classic Doctor Who and older revival episodes on BBC iPlayer. She opens the doors to watch scenes from Doctor Who episodes. We see Wedding of River Song, Day of the Daleks, which features a new Dalek prop going across the screen. So that's our official Dalek appearance in the 15th Doctor's era, guys. And then a bit of Rogue as well. So yeah, Anita likes to watch episodes of Doctor Who on BBC iPlayer in her spare time. I mean, she has to open the door to go and watch those scenes, but otherwise, yeah, she's a Whovian just like the rest of us. Although it's great to see Anita back initially, later on she does just end up being relegated to being the door barrister. Like, she's standing by the doors to keep them open to let real time in. She doesn't really do an awful lot after the Doctor gets back to unit, which is a shame because it was nice to see her back and she had some great moments with the Doctor talking to him. But yeah, then she just kind of gets left to the side, and she won't be the last or the worst case example of that. Anyway, so the Doctor manages to wake everybody else up at unit to what's going on. By the way, Susan Twist is back in this as Susan Triad. So other Susan. Hey, we've got two notable Jennies, plus also another one from Dalek Invasion of Earth, the TV story, not the movie. She was cut from the movie. But anyway, we got about at least 3 different Jennies. So yeah, why can't we have 3 different Susans? Oh, and 2 different Roses as well. So yeah, let's have a couple of Susans. Also, unit has these sort of chips inside their necks to call unit members to the tower, like the Suicide Squad, as Mr. TARDIS said. Although, hopefully without the explosive devices, unless Kate Stewart accidentally presses a button and Shirley's head explodes or something. Don't do that in the war between the land and the sea, Kate. Shirley's supposed to be on your side by the sounds of it. So yeah, it brings Ruby, Shirley, and Mel back to unit. By the way, how did Mel get that motor scooter up onto that floor? It's supposed to be several floors up. What, was the lift that big? Probably, actually, knowing the amount of stuff they need to transport up and down the building. Now, one thing I did really like was that the tower was able to be moved around, so it wasn't stationary in one position. It can move about where they need to be and has its own defences and weapons against the bone creatures, which I have to make an amendment from my reaction. I said those were the antimatter creatures from what I heard in the episode, but watching the episode again, they're considered antibodies, not antimatter. They couldn't even be antimatter antibody creatures, they're just antibodies. It begs the question, what even is the point of them outside of being something to attack the unit building to distract them from stopping the Rani getting Omega out? They're just kind of there for set dressing, or rather CGI location dressing. Yeah, also nice callback to Stolen Earth Journey's End with Project Indigo, with Ruby using something like that to transport herself to stop Conrad on her end, whilst the Doctor goes to stop the Ranis. Okay, side note, Belinda, because they want to keep Poppy safe, they put her in a homemade Zero room, but Belinda decides to go and join her, which makes sense because she is her mum. But that does mean that Belinda is basically out of the middle portion of the story, or at least this part of the story, whilst they go and do that. So she's shafted in her own finale, basically. Also, there's some very loud birds outside. I do apologise about that. So yeah, poor old Belinda is shafted in her finale. On the plus side, we get some more Ruby Sunday action. That's my girl. She's really cool in this finale and gets some great moments to shine. Meanwhile, the Doctor goes to stop the Rani. It's a great shot going under Tower Bridge, and the camera also going through it as well. That was really great. I liked that. So he goes to confront the two Ranis. By the way, Anita Punjabi is incredible. My goodness, I think she might even be my favourite Rani out of all 4, including Siobhan Reed from the audios. I mean, Kate O'Mara was incredible, and it would have been a heck of a lot to live up to her status in the series, but Punjabi does it with extreme ease. Anita Dobson also is brilliant, although more so as Mrs. Flood rather than Varani. I think she'll have more time to shine as Varani going forward, because, spoiler alert, she escapes. Not so much for Punjabi's Rani, more on that in a moment. As for Siobhan Reedman, she was also really great in the 2 audio dramas they got her in for. As the successor to Kate O'Mara, she's a worthy successor there, and it'd be great if Big Finish got the license to do more Rani stories now. Maybe they'll do a new story with the Rani in a year or two's time, depending on the right situation. But now that they're back on telly, then I'm sure Big Finish won't be too far behind doing new Rani audios featuring the 6th and 7th Doctor. Well, the other two were the 6th Doctor. Maybe we'll get 7th Doctor ones. We might even have some Time War ones if we're lucky. Ooh, yeah, Jonathan Carley should meet her next. And we got a similar situation with Timeless Children, and also Vanquishers and Survivors of the Flux as well, is when we're enjoying this really great villain who's basically been one of the standouts of the story, only to have them ripped out of the story because we get the return of Omega. Now, this is my biggest criticism of the episode. What the fuck did they do to Omega? Okay, Sutek. I didn't really like what they did with them, but I can at least see, in terms of the design, like how they got there based on Pyramids of Mars, how they got from that to how they got them in Empire of Death and Legend of Ruby Sunday, and also them now being a god and being trapped in the time vortex on the back of the TARDIS. I can kind of see how they were able to develop Sutek from a godlike being called an Ascian to the biggest god of all, the one who waits, etc. I can see how we can get to that. I mean, I didn't really like the idea of that, as great of a reveal as it was, but I wasn't so keen on on the actual explanation, etc. But I can kind of see where that came from. Same with making the Toymaker a god rather than just an immortal being. I can see where you're coming from. But Omega. Now, I understand making Omega a god, the god of the Time Lords even, and he even says in Three Doctors, I should have been a god, and this could be the time where they get to shine as a god. But I think other than that, and the whole him being the first Time Lord, discovering time travel, etc., other than that, they completely missed the mark of the character. Like for starters, the appearance is now a grotesque, monstrous, baby-esque Titan with a skull head now their own kind, the Time Lords themselves, including, sadly and frustratingly, the Punjabi Rani. I was about to say mistress for some reason. It's the Rani, not the master. The Anita Punjabi Rani, who was excellent. She was brilliant. And then, she got the character down to a T, and maybe even outshine Koto Mara, and then you fucking feed her to this thing. This excuse for another classic character. And they're defeated really easily as well, by the way, so we only get them for a couple minutes at best. Luckily, Anita Dobson's Ronnie escapes, as I mentioned, so hopefully, if the series carries on, we'll see her again. Be sort of like a reoccurring villainess akin to Missy or the Anthony Ainley Master in the 80s. Not quite as frequent as the Roger Delgado Master, but maybe it's like semi-frequent like Anthony Ainley's. But Omega in the classic series and expanded media was this revered person in time mythology, and after discovering time travel, they were trapped in an antimatter universe. They were basically abandoned by their fellow kinds, even if the Time Lords thought that he had been killed, but he had turned out to be trapped, and they just kind of abandoned him through negligence. There may be some suggestion that perhaps there may have been some sabotage in there, but there's no definitive proof, etc. But yeah, he's basically become a hero in Time Lord lore as of the Three Doctors. But he's trapped in the antimatter world. He wanted to get out. And so he sort of causes the events of that story there, trying to get out of his antimatter world and seek revenge on the Time Lords, but he's only got his will left. That and the antimatter world that he created through his will, and now he hasn't got a body anymore. So I suppose this is where his body ended up. And then in Arc of Infinity, he's trying again to get out. He's trying to look like the Doctor, and he's trying to affect Gallifreyan using the world of antimatter to get through to them. And there's some people on his side who are living on Gallifrey. Talks, I know, Omega Cult, etc. I can't really speak for much more of the expanded media. I did listen to the Omega story from the Fifth Doctor audios, where it paints him in a more sympathetic light, but I can't quite remember exactly what went down in that story. It's been a few years, quite a few actually. And then Omega turns up again in the Gallifrey 6 audios as well, which is where those Stephen Thorne lines from Wishworld came from, rather than Three Doctors. But yeah, Omega in the classic series was a tragic, sympathetic, but also pompous in a way, sort of very self-centered, narcissistic, but quite narcissistic, especially in Three Doctors type of character. He believes he feels abandoned by his own people and desires escape from the antimatter world and revenge against his fellow Time Lords. Here, he's now become a god, as he always wanted, but specifically a Titan, an even bigger god. And now he wants to eat off the Time Lords, and he's now this giant, grotesque and baby-faced, skull-faced baby giant thing. Fuck me. And the whole Underverse thing where he's trapped, that could have been his antimatter realm that he's trapped in. But I don't even think they mentioned antimatter once. Like I said, I think those antibody things, I thought they said antimatter, but they don't mention antimatter once. So it's basically Omega in name only, and also Big Finish sound clips. He does recognise the Doctor, but that's just because he's a returning character. He recognises the Doctor, but that, and also maybe he was paying attention to the rest of the story. He's been following it along, but yeah, the rest of it is basically it's just it's Omega in name only. It's otherwise. I mean, Nicholas Briggs does a great job voicing him. Good casting for the character, bring him back. He's a good option, but the character in writing and in visuals, no, they're not good. All this time we've been wanting this character back, and this is how we fans are repaid. I'm not even that ranting that much about it. I'm not even that wholeheartedly angry. I'm more disappointed rather than pissed off. But yeah, I mean, this is an iconic, classic Time Lord character that many people, especially confused adipose Joe Street, have been wanting back for years, decades for the older fans. And this is how you do him. Sute, you kind of botched, but at the very least, I could kind of see how he got there. But this is just misidentifying the character. Okay, Arc of Infinity was a bit different to Three Doctors, but that could be called character progression. And there's been a bit of time since then, and also because it was harder to watch the older episodes at that time. You maybe had to rely on the Target novels more. Thankfully, VHS was starting to release stories not long afterwards, so you can watch both stories on video. Maybe 10 or 15 or so years into the future, whenever they released them. But within the next 20 years, you had these two stories on video, and in the 2000s, they'd be released on DVD. So, and I think both stories are now on Blu-ray as of 2023. So, but even if you had to resort to the Target novelizations or fact books about the episodes, I still think Arc of Infinity got the character down from Three Doctors. It got it down better than this story, which has now had, not only do you have that story now available on Blu-ray, as well as BBC iPlayer, but you've also got all of these other books about all the characters and all the Doctor Who stuff, and you've got the internet that you can read. You can learn so much about the characters. You can watch those 8 episodes fulfill both stories each, and you've got the audios that he's appeared in. You can use those, but it just seems that just the character's just been completely squandered in this story. And you know what? What was more interesting is that of all of the flashback clips these two episodes have, especially Wishworld, not one of them features either of the original two designs for the character, Three Doctors or Arc of Infinity. Not once, yet the BBC, or obviously the Doctor Who official YouTube channel, was posting several best-of moments from both episodes about the character. But the actual episodes post no flashback clips, despite him appearing in two stories. And you have four Doctors facing him, or rather three, because the first Doctor didn't really face him properly. But you have the second, third, and fifth Doctors facing him on screen. One of those other audios also had the fifth Doctor again. And, you don't show any clips of those, but you're happy to show several shots of Poppy from the same episode. In the case of Wishworld, like, okay, yeah, that is a bit strange. Of all of those flashbacks, you can flash back to scenes that we've already seen earlier in the episode. Earlier in the series, yes, makes sense, but earlier in the same episode, and you don't really need to. So, yeah. So we got so hyped when Rani said she was going to find Omega, and it would have been interesting to see how a Rani Omega team up / trying to rebuild Gallifrey would have worked out. But no, Omega's become, well, firstly, nothing like what he was like in the classic series or expanded media. Second, or what fans like about him. Second, they turn him into a grotesque skull-faced giant baby creature who now eats their fellow Time Lords, or what they formerly used to be a fellow Time Lord, and now they eat their formerly own kind. And the worst thing is, Anita Punjabi was amazing as the Rani, and now she's gone. Well, it was kind of one of two Ranis being axed off and the other one escaping. I was presuming one of them at least one was going to escape. But, it looks like the Anita Dobson Rani is going to have to find a way to, if her Rani can't regenerate properly because she technically bi-generated, so Punjabi is technically the successor, and if she can't regenerate properly because Punjabi was supposed to be the one to regenerate, then she's probably going to have to do a master and try and find a new way of surviving once this life comes to an end, or in case something like what happened in the Stone contest happened again, with her getting basically a massive brain freeze. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. But Punjabi, remember how Derek Jacobi got the master down to a T? But then he dies, so he has to regenerate to John Sim. But at least he had some awesome moments on screen. That was Anita Punjabi as the Rani, but now over 2 and a bit episodes. But now we feel like we've been robbed of someone who we could have had a pop up again in the future. Yeah, I'm disappointed about that. Anyway, like I said, Omega is defeated really easily by the Doctor firing a Vindicator through him. The Vindicator laser with the power of like 1 billion supernovas through him, and that's how he's defeated. And Ruby manages to wish Conrad's wish away and make him happy in another life. Gives him a totally different life than before, etc. And she and the Doctor end the Wish world. And that's it. The day is saved. Thanks to the Doctor and Ruby Sunday. Not Belinda Chandra, no, she's hiding in the Zero room. But the day is saved once again, thanks to the Doctor and Ruby Sunday. Yep, okay, I'll give it this. Okay, whilst the handling of Omega was terrible, the rest of it was pretty fine. It was fun, enjoyable, entertaining. It was a bit overloaded with stuff, like most of the Russell finales have been, but overall, this story has some interesting elements to it. It has some entertaining moments. It's not quite the best, and it doesn't really handle Belinda very well in its second half either. That is a bit problematic. But overall, a pretty fun finale. A bit mad, but, and maybe it doesn't quite answer all of the questions and all of the setup from the last 2 years, etc. And there's definitely stuff being left over for next time, if there is a next time, like the boss and Susan, as it turns out. But, okay, but this, for the story mostly works, I'd say. I mean, apart from the Omega stuff, the Omega stuff is what the fuck. But apart from that, yeah, it's fine. It's a fun night. It's definitely better than last year's. But yeah, so yeah, don't have much more to say. That was good. That was good. It could have been better, but it was good. Hang on, why is there still about half an hour of the episode left? We should be wrapping up, within the next, if it's a 45-minute episode, in the next 10 minutes, maybe a few minutes extra longer for a bit of endorsing, self-endorsement, self-gratulation, a bit of fun, I mean, the previous finale was 55 minutes, the last episode, apparently, so, okay, maybe an extra couple of minutes, as it's the last episode of the series, you could have a few extra minutes, go on. Okay, what, but 65 minutes, and we're basically wrapping up the main plot about the 35-ish minute mark? What's the last half hour for? Okay, so real talk here. The production crew probably expected to do more than 2 seasons with Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor, and what was likely to happen was Poppy was saved, but then the Doctor, Ruby, Belinda would then go off and have more travels in the TARDIS going forward in season 3. Maybe they take Poppy along with them, and she survived after being saved in the reality war. And there was going to be a party scene, apparently, and Susan was going to look on. Oh, actually, Susan was apparently supposed to have Poppy with her, and everybody else was just going to have fun, and maybe Belinda and Ruby would have joined the Doctor for season 3, etc., etc. But when Ncuti Gatwa came back after doing, I think it was the Importance of Being Earnest play, they were probably expecting to start filming season 3. However, Disney Plus, who's co-funding the series and distributing it outside the UK and Ireland, have decided that they will not think about recommissioning the series for a 3rd season or beyond until after season 2 airs. Okay, well, that puts us in a bit of a difficult situation of where we're going to end this series. Also, Ncuti's got some other work coming up in August for a new project, and has had to turn down other work to wait for to do more Doctor Who. So, by the sounds of it, his schedule meant that by the time they were able to start production on the next series, if it did get commissioned, they may not have been able to do it. So, with a huge regret, they've stepped down from the role. They did some reshoots in February, and this basically serves as the last half hour, sort of a 15th Doctor epilogue. And yeah, so we'll get to his exit in a few moments. And yeah, this seems to be what's happened is that they left it open-ended for a possible Susan return as the cliffhanger for potentially going into a new arc next series, with Poppy perhaps, and with the Rani also still being out, the Anita Dobson Rani still being out there, and potentially having Belinda and Ruby and the Doctor as a trio in season 3. But by the sound of it, those plans have been scrapped. And even at time of recording on the 4th of June 2025 at nearly 6:30 in the evening, there's still no word about what Disney want to do. I mean, in fairness, it has only been 4 days since the episode aired, but they're probably not ready to make the decision until they get maybe 7-day figures or something in. But because of that, Ncuti's had to leave because he doesn't know if he can commit to this show if he whilst wanting to do other things. Meaning that this is going to be the final story for the 15th Doctor. And it pains me to say that. Because the 15th Doctor, I think I can safely say, I haven't thought about it too much, but I think I would say they are one of my favourites. At the very least, top 5 or 6. Even if it's just mainly from the performance and alone. But then again, I also do like the writing. Yes, I know they're a bit overly emotional quite often, but this is one of the more empathetic Doctor. The 15th Doctor is the sunset shimmer of Doctors. That's a My Little Pony Equestria Girls reference to all of you who are aware of that series. And if you know about that character, you'll know, besides maybe what they were like in the first film, then you'll know what I'm talking about regarding the connection. So, what we get at the end, in the actual ending of the story, is that after the day is saved once again by the Doctor and Ruby Sunday, the Doctor and Belinda decide to look after Poppy. However, she ends up being the last thing of the Wish World that is then reversed. There are glitches from the Wish World, but Ruby ends up being the only one to remember Poppy. And it's a very interesting visual that shows the Doctor and Belinda passing back Poppy's coat, which gets smaller and smaller as things go on. Eventually, Ruby has to persuade everybody that Poppy was real and convince the Doctor to somehow bring her back. So the Doctor decides that in order to bring Poppy back, he has to give up his remaining, the rest of this current incarnation and force regeneration hour to bring Poppy back and then thus regenerate into his successor. Interestingly, the Doctor says that the only thing that can bring Poppy back is the last of the Time Lords. Doctor, the Rani is still out there. Well, one of them. You're not the last of the Time Lords anymore. Technically. Even Omega's sort of still alive. So, yeah, I don't know why they said that specifically. I can understand the power of a Time Lord. Yeah, I can understand. I take that line, but the power of the last of the Time Lords, which is inaccurate anyway. It's also a bit of a clunky line. Anyway, so the Doctor is in the TARDIS and he's prepared to give himself up, and then for some reason the TARDIS is reminding him of his previous selves, which doesn't really make sense. Him remembering his previous selves in Wish World makes sense, although for some reason one of the clips is the Abbot of Ambrosia from the Massacre, and another is instead of the 8th Doctor, and this also happens in Reality Wars, they show one of the Guardians of the Edge. Seriously, are they afraid to show TV movie clips now, since Paul McGann's return in Night of the Doctor and or in The Power of the Doctor? Are they now just scared of using TV movie clips for the 8th Doctor from now on? I mean, I understand the Night of the Doctor clip being used for storing the engine, but why not use a TV movie clip or a clip from that episode for these 2 episodes? And also, why was the Abbot of Ambrosia used instead of the First Doctor for the Wish World one? But why? But I don't understand why the TARDIS has to remind the Doctor of the past faces. As nice as it is, but it is the 3rd episode of the past 4, which basically shows this off. We know what the previous Doctors look like. We've did the previous episode and 2 episodes prior already showed them, and Rogue also had all the faces spinning round as well. Okay, the story in the engine didn't have every Doctor. The 7th and more Doctors were exempt, and the Fugitive Doctor was only in her cameo and not on the story screens, etc. But the other Doctors, up to 14... Actually, was 14 there? Yeah, I think 14 was on there, but definitely up to 13, apart from 7 and more, were on those screens. And Fugitive. But yeah, anyway, the Wish World had all of them, although Abbot of Ambrosia and Guardian of the Edge 8th Doctor instead of the 1st and 8th Doctors themselves. Also, sorry for the noise outside again, noisy stuff. But what I don't understand is why the TARDIS again shows the Doctor's faces. I mean, is it like the Doctor doesn't want to give up this face. He's saying, I did like this face, it's a shame, but I'm probably going to have to give it up. And then the TARDIS is showing the faces. I understand if the TARDIS was trying to convince the Doctor to give up their life, if they were like complaining about it, like with the 10th Doctor, like, why does it have to be me? Okay, that was a 14th Doctor line, but that was something different. But that sort of gist, if he was like, like angry or upset, or if he was reluctant to do it, and then the TARDIS showed it to him as, you've done this before, and you've still got life left. It's okay to move on. But no, he's prepared to do it. So yeah, I don't know why the TARDIS is showing these past Doctor pictures, and then the 13th Doctor shows up for some reason. She's pulled out of her timeline to both warn slash help the Doctor, the 15th Doctor, with what he's doing. Some nice interaction between the two of them. Now, I'm not sure if what she's saying here implies that the 15th Doctor causes the flux, even though that was specifically said to be Tecteun who created that, or maybe she was warning him if he did what he did, he'd do something like the flux. It's not really made terribly clear why she's here. It's great to have her back, and Jodie Whittaker is brilliant in her scene. It's like she never left. But yeah, I'm not quite sure why 13 pops up, apart from a warning, and then makes a suggestion that works for the Doctor's, for the 15th Doctor's favour. So, but it's a great scene nevertheless. It's just maybe the exact reasons of what's going on not terribly clear, but still nice. Anyway, so the Doctor does what he needs to do, and what happens is it basically results in Belinda coming back for Poppy, is what the series arc was about. So previously Belinda was trying to get home so that she could go to work a few days later. She just wanted to get back to her life. And now what seems to have happened is that the Doctor has changed time, or sort of changed reality, to now have Belinda be mother of Poppy, and that she was trying to get back home to be there for Poppy on that specific morning because their parents were looking after her overnight whilst Belinda was working, and then they were off to Manchester to do a show or something, and so Belinda had to be there to take over looking after Poppy. Basically, I think it's implied that there was a bit of a shift in history to so that Poppy could exist. That's why. So they had to move some time frames, so to speak. So okay, yeah, interesting decision, but it does diminish Belinda's character a bit. I mean, she'd already been reduced to the mother-daughter role in Conrad's Wish World, but yeah, her character takes a significant change of direction in this episode. Even in the previous one, it was still in Wish World. It was still sort of revealing characters, just that she was stuck in Conrad's influence. But now she's gone for a very different direction to what she was like in the previous few episodes. And if it was leading all up to this, then that's retroactively changed what her character was like. In a way, I think it was the fact that the Doctor did change some bit of her history to make so that they could fit Poppy in somewhere. But either way, it does feel like, well, I think the series arc still worked, but now things are being adjusted just so that they can squeeze Poppy in, and it does sort of like has a secondary reason. I don't know. Although the scene with the Doctor and Poppy together is really nice and pretty fun, and they all play it off really nicely. Then the Doctor says goodbye to Belinda and Poppy. He then does not have a final goodbye with Ruby, which sort of implies that maybe she'll be back again later in the future, but it is a shame that 15 didn't have a final goodbye with his first companion, who was the one to encourage him to go and bring back Poppy, and she was able to remember it, which is probably due to what happened in 73 Yards, is that somehow that's helped her remember Poppy's her experiences in that episode, like they did with Empire of Death. But yeah, yeah. And it's a bit of a shame that Ruby doesn't get a final scene with 15. Even if she's coming back, it would still have been nice for 15 to go back and say, hey, you were right, thank you very much, you were the best, Rubes. Now I've got to go and turn into my successor. But, we had the best of times. Thank you, etc., etc., etc. And then, 15 then goes off to see Joy, the from Joy to the World, but now in the Joy Star, and basically regenerates in the doors of the TARDIS. It's a really big regeneration, probably the biggest regeneration ever, because it's spamming out across space. So like I said, I didn't want him to go, but real life issues clearly, or opportunities got in the way of Ncuti having to commit for a third series, so this is the wrap up to his tenure. In terms of this being his final story, I think we should have had one more episode at Christmas. They just go ahead and make a Christmas episode, whether Disney likes it or not. We'll negotiate an extra episode with Disney, just to one more Christmas special to basically wrap up the year, as opposed to doing an extra couple minutes on top of this episode. End this episode how they planned, and then maybe have one more episode which serves as 15's final battle. Because most of this, because it didn't, it's like it's the inverse to Twice Upon a Time. One Time Doctor Falls was designed to be the final 12th Doctor story, but then Stephen Moffat wanted to keep the Christmas Day slot for one more year, so they wrote an epilogue episode to that story, which serves as the 12th Doctor's regeneration story / episode, even though Doctor Falls was initially going to be his last one. This is the inverse of that. This feels like there was room for at least one more episode. We should have had one more. And this episode didn't really have anything to set up a proper regeneration. And now we're just kind of forcing one in, so that we can finish here, and then the last episodes in the commission are for the spin-off. To be honest, I would have just preferred Christmas special and 4 episodes of season 3, maybe slightly longer episodes to make up for the only being half as long, instead of the spin-off. As good as that spin-off is looking, honestly, I would have just preferred a half-long season 3 and Christmas special, maybe like 75-minute episodes instead. Or ask for a 30-episode commission, and then you got season 3 and this Christmas special. Although it does mean there wouldn't be a Christmas special after that, but by then maybe Disney would have renewed for season 4 after the second season. So, but then you've still got another season's worth of arcs that you can plan the regeneration as the finale to. But we have to end it here. So, okay. I suppose on an emotional level it works, but then, like I said, Poppy's not a character we've followed throughout a season or two. She's just been in these 2 episodes, and briefly also storing the engine and another Poppy in Space Baby. So, yeah, we don't have the huge emotional connection with her as we do with, say, Belinda or Ruby. But in terms of the Doctor's final scenes, those are pretty emotional, and I think for the last few days it has just been a bit of a weird feeling, because, as I mentioned, 15 is one of my favourites, and it just feels so weird that this is his ending, and now he's gone, and he'd only just arrived. Like, it's been less than 18 months since the giggle, so, and it's now been over 4 years since he was, over 3 years since he was cast. So we've had about 3 to 4 Doctors, including the one at the end of this episode, in 3 years. 4 years in terms of production, because the 2022 specials would have been made in 21. So in the 3 years broadcast, 4 years production, we've had 4 Doctors. And we've had a regeneration every year, including 2024 with the War Games in colour, and with the updated second to third Doctor regeneration. So, Yeah, we're going through them really quickly, which doesn't feel. It feels really weird for the future. This does not bode well. But okay, say the series will return. Maybe we'll get a Christmas special. Say season 3 comes out next year or 2027. Okay, we're going to have a new 16th Doctor. It's going to be fine. Okay, so 15 has a really nice does actually have a pretty sweet regeneration scene, some nice lines, and he goes out with a smile once again. He's okay with it. Okay, so we may not see who the new Doctor is, but maybe we'll see who they are. Okay, who is it? So, turns out the new Doctor is actually going to be Billie Piper, who previously played Rose Tyler in the series, and Rose Tyler was not a supporting guest character like Caecilius from Fires of Pompeii that Peter Capaldi played, or General Maxil from the Arc of Infinity, hello again, that Colin Baker played before they were their Doctors respectively, or Adiola from Army of Ghost Doomsday that Prima Radlin played before becoming Martha Jones, the soothsayer that Carrigan played at Fires of Pompeii again before becoming Amy Pond, etc., etc. So Billie Piper's been in the show before, but as Rose Tyler, the first companion of the revival, one of the main characters in series 1 and 2, and at the end of series 4, and also the Day of the Doctor, but as the moment in the guise of Rose Tyler / Bad Wolf. So now, Rose Tyler, or Billie Piper, is the 16th Doctor. Billie Piper is an incredible actress, but I'm not so keen on the idea of a former lead actor playing a lead character in the series coming back to now play the Doctor. If it was a supporting guest actor, as a supporting guest character, like say Russell Tovey was in Voyage of the Damned, he was a suggestion for 11th Doctor when casting of that was coming around, someone like him, then yeah, I'd be for it, even if he was a more notable supporting character in that story, but still not one of the leads. Or we could have gone with someone new, someone maybe Russell knew, like Lydia West, or someone they thought was really great for the role that you could, if the series did continue, they'd launch it and make it really popular and stuff. Maybe someone who's really well known, or someone who's, if the series does get made, it's their big break. But no, they go with someone who's been in the series as a lead character before. And we've done this trick pony before. We got a past actor who played a Doctor, a previous Doctor, back to play a new one with David Tennant as the 14th Doctor. And whilst I ended up really liking 14, I think I like him more than 10. I still wasn't really keen on that idea at first, and I still think that should have been the one-time job, and especially if it was only a temporary one before Ncuti served as the face of the series going forward. Well, until now, or rather until 4 days ago at time of recording, maybe a bit longer at time of release. But okay, so new face for the next era should it get made. Now we're bringing back a former companion actor. I've done a video on Universals about this, so do check that out. It's mostly a theories video I was asked to do about whether she's actually playing Rose or if she's playing another character like the Bad Wolf, or something, or if she is the Doctor, maybe stuff the TARDIS had something to do with inspiring why they look like Rose now. But that's Rose Tyler, not Rose Noble. That's going to be awkward. But yeah, either way, well, maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe like with 14, I don't have anything to worry about. If she is going to be the Doctor, I hope it actually ends up being at least one series, not a couple of specials. Honestly, I'd actually like it to be 2 or 3 series. Is really, apparently there was plans to go up to season 5, so maybe do 3 seasons with her. We'll see how it goes, but I just don't want them to be another gap Doctor, another short-term fill the void should the show come back sooner than later, and she's the lead role. But yeah, just don't want her to be like, she's stunt casting, but not, for the sake of it. Like, should they? Sorry, very loud motorbike up there. Should they come back? They need to commit to it rather than, just being for the final scene. Otherwise, you may as well just just fade to black like they were planning to do for Jodie's. And yes, that might have caused a Trial of Time Lord original ending to Trial of Time Lord situation where that would have been the excuse to end the series rather than to leave it open-ended. But if you're going to cast anybody, really, you've got to commit to them, and that goes double for Billie Piper or anybody else who was a main character coming back to play the Doctor, or another past Doctor coming back. You've got to commit to it. At least with the Tennant episodes, we knew those were coming with the Tennant specials. We even got a trailer for them. But now we're in a state of limbo where we don't even know, apart from the war between the lands, what's happening next, if anything. So we're just in this kind of limbo state. And that concerns me. If it had been someone new, we could have had, even if Disney didn't renew the deal, season 3 would still be made under BBC Bad Wolf, and this person was going to lead it. Now, we don't even know if that's going to be the case with Billie. I mean, maybe we'll find out later in the month or in July what the situation's going to be. But for right now, the future of the series is in limbo. It's not quite as much as with James Bond, although hopefully that's slowly but surely been trying to push forward with something going on. But like with Bond, we're in a bit of a wilderness period. This is probably the most, other than this upcoming spin-off, this is probably the most wilderness wilderness years feeling since the wilderness years themselves. Because at least, like I said, we're between Power of the Doctor and Starbase. We at least knew the episodes were coming. They have been filmed. We'd seen trailer for them, and yeah, between each new era, we knew they were on there. The next one was on the way. Now we're in a state of I don't even know what's happening next, let alone what's the new era is going to be. The next new era. And there might not even be a new era. We may not even, like, this one might have come to an end, or it might be on hold for a bit. So, yeah, I suppose more my issues is the fact we don't know what's going on next, rather than what the actual decision was, although I wasn't really keen on the idea anyway. But maybe, like, Tennant being 14 as well as 10 won me round. Maybe I'll be one round by this, but it's going to need more than a couple of episodes. I don't want it to just be 1 or 2 episodes. It's got to be at least a series. And not just a series of minisodes, a proper series. We can't keep going through Doctors like, super quickly all the time. You've got to let them stick around for a bit. And give them enough stories in that period as well. So, overall, Wishworld and the Reality War, for the most parts, I really like this, even though it's a bit crazy and mad and a bit all over the place. But I think this works mostly well. Wishworld is probably the stronger of the 2 episodes, with the interesting setup of the Wishworld itself, before we come to what's it all about and why. And then Reality War has a lot of really good moments, particularly in that first act. Even if some characters are kind of sidelined for a bit, but it still has some really good moments. However, the treatment of Omega, and also the Archie Punjabi Rani, who was an absolutely magnificent villain in the story, and the end of the Interstellar Song Contest, is then just taken off the table, probably never to be used again unless they could somehow bring her back. I don't know. We'll be lucky to even have Mrs. Flood back, I suppose. Anita Dobson Rani back. And then the last part of the story, because of the reshoots, because of the change of the plan, means we have a premature end to the 15th Doctor's run, and it's not quite the best ending. Like I said, if they did one more episode instead, that could have, as the Christmas special, that would have maybe given them enough time to do a more emotional final story for 15. Um, as it ends up, it's just sort of kind of is a stuck on epilogue to a story that felt like it was nearly ready to wrap up anyway. Um, whilst also leaving some other stuff unanswered, even if like some of it may be planned for later anyway. But the teasers would have been there. And then, like I said, with the casting of Billie Piper as the next Doctor, they got to really. I'm not huge on the idea, but if they're going to do it, they're going to commit to it. And maybe I'll be one round, but you can't just leave it like that. Otherwise, you may as well have just left it open ended. It's an episode where I'm really conflicted with, and the score I'm going to give the story may not end up being the final score sticking. So overall, I think it's a good story, well made, but there's some what moments, and I can't get over how they dealt Omega, how badly they were handled, and also I think Belinda was a bit too sidelined in her own finale as well. This is her last story, unless they bring her back as well, and Ruby but at least Ruby got some great moments to shine in part 2, even though she didn't get a proper final goodbye with 15. That was a missed opportunity. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good story, but there's some bits that are just a bit shaky and some other bits that are bad. I will be passing the story at 8 out of 10. And that's because I like it, but I will acknowledge there is a lot of flaws and problems. It's mostly held up by Wishworld being pretty great setup, and then Reality War is quite a bit of fun, but like I said, how they handle Omega is awful, and then the last third is noticeably added on to wrap up 15-0 without needing to do an extra episode, which they should have done, really, in my opinion. I probably would give Reality War 7 if going individual episodes, which I would say would put it lower than Interstellar Song Contest, but I think I was a bit too nice on that one, giving that an 8. So I think I would lower Interstellar Song Contest down to 7, but I'll make that official declaration in the ranking. Even though it does have Dugadoo, but even Dugadoo couldn't save that episode, and I don't think even Dugadoo could have saved certain elements of this story. Bring Dugadoo back for season 3, though. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This was a bit of a tough one to decide the ranking, and sorry for the length. I did say it was going to be a fairly long one. But even though I didn't really talk about Wishworld that much, but I still think it was really good for the most parts. So yeah, that's my season 2 reviews done. Boom. Which is not an episode from this series. I will be doing the ranking soon, later, hopefully later this month. I'm going to rewatch the episodes again, so it'll be the third viewings, or fourth in the case of Joy to the World and Revolution, and then I'll have my ranking. But I think I've sort of got what it is kind of like now settled. I wasn't really sure where to put Wishworld after that episode, but I think I've now kind of, and also with Reality War being a bit conflicted on that, but I think I've now I think I've settled on what my ranking might be, but I'm going to do another viewing of each episode to determine that. And then after that will be a top 10 15th Doctor stories. I wrestled with the idea of top 8 or top 10 because there's only 16 stories, not including the giggle, but I think I'll go for 10 because there is enough for that. And then the other 6 are just left over. Well, I managed to do a top 5 6th Doctor one in there. It was only, depending on how you count Trial of the Time Lords, 8 as one story, or 11 if you count it as the 4 stories. In which case I was able to do 5 out of 11 or 8, depending on your view of it. And the 9th Doctor one was basically half the Series 1 ranking again, and I knew if I did a top 10 of that, that was basically Series 1 ranking again, a repeat. So I just did, I just like top 5, and it was the top half of that series ranking, but okay, focusing on those ones. So yeah, I will. I suppose I'll end up doing a top 10 for this but I did consider 8. But I think we got enough to maybe push it to 10. So top 10 15th Doctor stories ranking after the season 2 ranking. Season 2 Bad Wolf, Series 15, Season 41, yada yada yada. And also say where I would put that season in the overall 41 seasons ranking. And maybe I'll update my Fugitive Doctor moments ranking, because now I can include the story and the engine into that. So maybe I'll do that afterwards. Oh, and one more thing before we go. Ncuti Gatwa, thank you for being the 15th Doctor. You were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Here's to you. Sorry for the loud noises upstairs. My dad's going to the loft. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching this review. Sorry for it being very long. And I shall hopefully see you all next time for the Bad Wolf Season 2 / Series 15 / Season 41 ranking. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.